a simple night out would change my life forever. I was out for revenge, but what I didn't expect was to fall in love with the one man I swore I'd use. This is the story of how revenge can sometimes cost you your own happiness. Hi, I'm Emma, and I've got a story to tell you, one about betrayal, revenge, and the kind of love that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. You see, I thought I had everything figured out. My life, my relationships, my future, all of it. But then, one night, everything changed. It started at a bar. I was there with my best friend, Susan, nursing a drink, and talking about the mess my fiancé, Raphael, had made of my life. He had destroyed my career dreams, humiliated me in front of everyone, and crushed my heart. And I was done with him. So, when Susan suggested I make a man fall in love with me, just to get revenge on all the men who'd ever hurt me, I agreed without hesitation. We were going to use a stranger, make him fall for me, and then break his heart just like Raphael had broken mine. But little did I know, that night would bring me face to face with a man I never saw coming. A man who would change everything. And suddenly, revenge didn't seem so important anymore. It had all come crashing down in one devastating moment. Raphael, my fiancé, the man I thought I could trust with my heart and my future, had humiliated me in front of everyone. The promotion I had worked so hard for, the dream job I had sacrificed so much for, he destroyed it with a few careless words. I had been working as a waitress, putting in long hours at the cafe, saving every penny, hoping that one day I'd be more than just the girl who serves coffee. I had fought for that assistant manager position, convinced that it would finally give me the respect I deserved. But when the moment came, Raphael crushed it. He stood there, in front of my boss, and told me I wasn't cut out for it. That I'd never be more than a waitress. It was like he didn't even see me anymore, didn't see all the effort I'd put in, all the sacrifices I'd made for us. He didn't even look sorry. He didn't care. And that's when it hit me, the man I loved, the man I thought would always have my back, had just torn me down. He didn't even apologize. He didn't care about my dreams, my ambitions, or my heart. All he cared about was his own ego. That night, I went home feeling like a stranger in my own life. The love I had once felt for him had turned to resentment, and I knew I couldn't just let this slide. I couldn't let him get away with destroying everything I had worked for. I needed to make him feel the same pain, the same humiliation. I needed revenge. But what I didn't realize was that the path to revenge would lead me down a road I couldn't control. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, staring at the empty street ahead of me, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. The air felt thick, suffocating, as I replayed Raphael's words in my head over and over again. The look on his face when he told me I wasn't good enough, that I'd never be anything more than a waitress. I could still hear the cruel laughter in his voice, the dismissal in his eyes. It was as if everything I had worked for, everything I had sacrificed, meant nothing to him. I had given him my trust, my love, my future, and he had destroyed it all with a few careless words. I was left with nothing but a broken heart and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. I couldn't let it go. I couldn't just sit back and pretend like nothing had happened. I needed something. I needed justice. But what could I do? What could I possibly do to make him feel the weight of what he had done to me? That's when Susan called. I didn't even need to say anything for her to know something was wrong. She could hear it in my voice, the anger, the hurt, the betrayal. I told her everything. How Raphael had destroyed my career, humiliated me in front of my boss, and how he didn't even care. She listened, but there was no sympathy in her voice. She wasn't the type to sugarcoat things, and I knew she wouldn't give me any false comfort. Instead, she said something that caught me completely off guard. "Why don't you make him pay?" she asked, her voice steady and cool. "Make a man fall in love with you, use him, and then dump him, just like Raphael did to you." I froze. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. At first, I thought it was a joke. It sounded so wrong. I couldn't imagine doing that to someone else, using them for my own revenge. But as the seconds ticked by, the idea started to take root in my mind. What if I could do it? What if I could make a man feel the way Raphael had made me feel? What if I could make him beg for my love, only to crush him when he least expected it? I hesitated. A part of me wanted to say no, to walk away from this dark path, before I went any further. I didn't want to become someone I didn't recognize, someone who used others just to feel better. But the pain, the humiliation, it was too much to bear. The idea of seeing someone else suffer the way I had, of watching them beg for me and then tear their heart out, it was intoxicating. It felt like justice. It felt like control. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't turn back. Okay, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'll do it. I'll make him fall in love with me. And then I'll break his heart. Just like Raphael did to me. I was sitting at the bar with Susan, nursing a glass of wine and trying to push the chaos of the day out of my mind when I saw him. Smith. He walked in like he owned the place, his presence commanding attention without him even trying. Tall, dark hair, a jawline that could cut glass, and eyes that seemed to pierce through the dim lighting of the bar. He wasn't just handsome, he had this aura about him. Confident, self-assured, and completely unaware of the game I was about to play. He made his way to the bar, his gaze sweeping over the crowd, and for some reason, it landed on me. I froze for a moment. It wasn't the kind of look I was used to, he wasn't just scanning the room like any other guy. No, his eyes lingered on me, and there was something in them that made my heart skip a beat. It wasn't desire, not exactly. It was something deeper, something that made me feel seen. Like he actually noticed me, beyond just the surface. It was unsettling, in a way. I wasn't used to that kind of attention. I'd been invisible to Raphael for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to be noticed in that way. Susan nudged me, her voice low and teasing. He's looking at you, Em. What are you going to do about it? I didn't know. I couldn't explain it, but there was something about Smith that felt different. He wasn't just another man to use in my revenge plot. He had this quiet strength about him, something that made me feel like maybe, just maybe, he wasn't the kind of man I could easily manipulate. But that thought quickly faded as I reminded myself of my mission. I wasn't here for romance. I was here to make a man fall in love with me and break his heart. That was the plan. Smith smiled as he approached, his voice smooth and warm as he introduced himself. Hi, I'm Smith, he said, offering his hand. I couldn't help but notice you from across the room. You have a unique energy about you. I shook his hand, trying to keep my composure. His touch was firm, confident, and for a moment, I almost forgot why I was even here. I was supposed to be using him, not letting him charm me with that smile of his. But as he spoke, I couldn't shake the feeling that he wasn't just another man to manipulate. He was different. And I wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a bad thing. I had everything planned out. I knew exactly how this night would go. Pour the wine, turn on the music, compliment him just enough to keep him interested, and then, the rest would fall into place. I'd play my part, pretend to be charmed by him, and lead him down the path I had set. This was about revenge, nothing more. I was in control. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. Smith and I sat down at his kitchen table, the soft glow of the candles flickering between us. He poured the wine with a practiced hand, his movements smooth and confident. I couldn't help but notice how effortlessly he seemed to do everything. It was as if he had this natural grace, and for a brief moment, I was captivated. But I quickly shook it off. I couldn't let myself get distracted. This wasn't about me enjoying his company, it was about making him fall for me so I could crush him, just like Raphael had crushed me. I smiled, keeping the conversation light, asking about his work, his interests, trying to get a read on him. He seemed so different from the men I was used to. He wasn't arrogant or self-centered like Raphael. He listened, really listened, to what I had to say. And with every passing minute, I felt a knot form in my stomach. Why was this so much harder than I thought? The more we talked, the more I realized how much I was enjoying our conversation. He wasn't just some Casanova with a smooth line. He was kind, thoughtful, and real. He didn't make me feel like a game or a conquest. He made me feel seen. And that terrified me. I had a plan, and I couldn't let myself get caught up in the idea of something real. I couldn't afford to let my guard down, not when I had come so far. As the night wore on, I found myself laughing at his jokes, sharing stories I hadn't planned to tell, and even feeling a strange warmth inside when he looked at me with those intense eyes of his. I tried to remind myself that this was all just part of the act. He was a means to an end, nothing more. But the more I pretended to be interested, the more I felt myself slipping. I wanted to believe that I was still in control, but deep down, I knew I was losing myself in this game. You know, Smith said, leaning back in his chair, I'm really glad we're doing this. It's not often I get to meet someone who's so genuine. It's refreshing. His words hit me harder than I expected. Genuine? I wasn't being genuine. I was playing a part, pretending to be something I wasn't. And yet, something about him made me want to be that person, the one who could actually be real for once. I quickly changed the subject, pushing those thoughts away. But as the night continued, I couldn't help but feel the walls I had built around myself start to crack. This wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to fall for him. I was supposed to break him, not get swept away by him. But as I caught his gaze again, I realized that the line between revenge and something more was blurring, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep pretending. I had spent days convincing myself that I was in control. That this was just a game. That I could do what I needed to do, get my revenge on Raphael, and then walk away without a second thought. But the more time I spent with Smith, the more I realized how much I was lying to myself. I was supposed to be getting revenge. That was the plan. But every time I looked at him, every time our hands brushed or our eyes locked, I felt something I wasn't prepared for. It wasn't just attraction, it was something deeper. Something real. I wasn't supposed to feel this way. I wasn't supposed to want him. I wasn't supposed to care. Smith wasn't like Raphael. He wasn't playing games. He wasn't pretending to be someone he wasn't. He was kind, thoughtful, and genuine. He listened to me in a way Raphael never had. He made me feel like I mattered, like I was more than just a pretty face or a pawn in some twisted game. And every time I looked at him, I felt like I was falling deeper into something I couldn't control. I kept telling myself it was just part of the act. That I was still in control. But the truth was, I wasn't. I had been lying to myself, pretending that I could keep my emotions in check. But I couldn't. I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to use him. I wanted to be with him. And that terrified me. I couldn't keep going like this. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when I knew deep down that I was developing real feelings for him. It wasn't part of the plan. I had to tell him the truth. I had to come clean about everything, the revenge, the bet, the lies. I owed him that much. But how could I? How could I admit to him that the woman he had been getting to know was nothing more than a facade? How could I tell him that I had been playing him all along, when all I really wanted was to be with him? I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I could face the consequences of my actions. The truth was, I was scared. Scared of losing him. Scared of the pain that might come from telling him the truth. But more than that, I was scared of what I was becoming. I wasn't the woman I thought I was. I wasn't the woman who could carry out a revenge plot without consequences. I was someone who had fallen for a man who wasn't part of the plan. And now, I had to figure out what to do about it. I couldn't keep it inside any longer. The guilt was eating away at me, and every time I looked at Smith, it felt like a lie was hanging between us. I had to tell him the truth, no matter how much it hurt. No matter how much it might destroy everything. Smith, I need to tell you something, I said, my voice trembling. He looked at me, his eyes soft, as if he already knew something was wrong. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself, but the words felt like they were choking me. I came here to hurt you. I came here to make you fall in love with me, and then break your heart. I saw his expression change, the warmth in his eyes turning to confusion and hurt. I had expected it, but it still felt like a punch to the gut. He leaned back, his hand gripping the edge of the table as if he were trying to process what I had just said. I never meant for this to happen, I continued, my voice cracking. I never meant to fall for you. I didn't expect you to be the kind of man who could make me feel like this. His face softened, but I could see the hurt there, the disappointment. So this was all a game to you? He asked quietly. I was just a part of your plan? I nodded, feeling the weight of my confession pressing down on me. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to pull back once I started. He stood up, running a hand through his hair, clearly struggling to understand. You played me. You used me. His voice was low, almost like he was trying to keep his anger in check. Why didn't you just tell me the truth from the start? Why didn't you just tell me what you wanted? I wanted to, but I couldn't. I couldn't tell you that I was falling for you, that everything I thought I wanted had changed because of you. I didn't want to admit that I was the one who was being played. There was a long silence between us. I could feel the distance growing, the space between us stretching farther and farther as the truth settled in. I had ruined everything. I had destroyed the one thing that had started to feel real. Smith turned to me, his face a mixture of pain and disbelief. You could have had something real, Emma. You didn't have to do this. I know, I whispered, my heart breaking. I know. And now I've ruined it. I stood there, waiting for Smith to say something, anything. The silence between us was deafening. I had confessed everything, my lies, my plan, my guilt, and now all I could do was wait for him to decide what to do with it. For a long moment, he didn't speak. His eyes were clouded with pain, but there was something else there too, something I couldn't quite place. Finally, he sighed, his shoulders slumping as if the weight of everything had finally hit him. You hurt me, Emma, he said, his voice low and raw. But I can't hate you for it. I know what it's like to be hurt by love. To be betrayed. To feel like you're not in control of your own heart. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was forgiving me? After everything I'd done to him? I felt a rush of guilt and gratitude wash over me, but I also felt something else, a deep sense of shame. I didn't deserve his forgiveness. But even as I felt that, I realized something important. Revenge wasn't going to heal my pain. It wasn't going to fix what Raphael had done to me, or what I had done to myself. I thought I could use Smith to get back at the world, but all I had done was make things worse. I had hurt someone who didn't deserve it, and in the process, I had lost a chance at something real. Smith looked at me one last time, his gaze softening. I'm not saying we can just pick up where we left off, he said gently. But maybe we can start again. Maybe we can try to find something real. No more games. I nodded, my heart heavy but hopeful. I don't deserve that, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. But I'll try. I'll try to be the woman you deserve. He smiled faintly, a sad but genuine smile. That's all I can ask for. As we stood there, the weight of everything that had happened settled in. I had learned a hard lesson. Revenge might feel good in the moment, but it only leaves you empty in the end. The people we try to hurt are often the ones who end up healing us, if we let them. And as for me? I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let my past mistakes define me. I was going to take responsibility for my actions and try to build something real, something worth having. It wasn't going to be easy. But maybe, just maybe, it would be worth it. Just when I thought everything had settled, when I thought I had learned my lesson and found a way to move forward, life threw me one last curveball. A few weeks had passed since my confession to Smith, and things between us had slowly started to heal. We were taking things one day at a time, no longer playing games, just two people trying to rebuild what I had almost destroyed. But then, out of nowhere, I got a call that would change everything. It was Raphael. I hadn't heard from him in weeks, not since he had crushed my dreams and broken my heart. I had thought he was out of my life for good, that I was finally free of the man who had caused me so much pain. But his voice on the other end of the line changed everything. "Emma," he said, his tone soft, almost pleading. "I've been thinking about everything we've been through, and I need to apologize. I know I hurt you, and I know I don't deserve a second chance. But I've changed. I'm not the same man I was." I felt a wave of confusion wash over me. Part of me wanted to scream at him, to tell him to stay away and never contact me again. But another part of me, a part one wasn't ready to admit, wanted to believe him. Maybe he had changed. Maybe he was the man I once loved. But then I looked at Smith, standing there, his eyes filled with warmth and understanding. I realized something in that moment. I had spent so much time seeking revenge, so much time trying to get back at the people who hurt me, that I had forgotten what really mattered. Love wasn't about revenge, it was about healing. It was about finding someone who truly cared for you, who saw you for who you really were. I turned back to Raphael, my heart heavy with the weight of everything I had been through. "I appreciate your apology," I said softly. "But I've moved on. I'm with someone who sees me, who understands me, and who loves me for who I am." There was a long silence on the other end of the line before Raphael finally spoke. "I guess I understand," he said, his voice tinged with regret. "I hope you find the happiness you deserve, Emma." As I hung up the phone, I realized something that took me by surprise. The real twist wasn't that I had forgiven Raphael or that I had gotten my revenge. The real twist was that I had finally learned to love myself. I had stopped looking for validation in others, stopped seeking revenge for past wrongs. And in doing so, I had found a love that was real, one that wasn't based on games or manipulation. In the end, I didn't just lose my need for revenge, I lost my fear of love. Smith didn't just teach me how to trust again, he showed me that I was worth loving. And that was the real victory. If you've ever found yourself caught in the tangled web of love, revenge, or forgiveness, I want to hear from you.